Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Ignorant Intellectual on Media. Well, this past few days, this past week, it's been crazy, the stuff I've been finding, and it's been piling up, as you notice in front of me, so I need to get rid of it. I need to put it away where it needs to go because my desk is being overflowed by it. So I figured I'd do a quick video. That way you can see what I got over the last week. It's another mixed haul. I think this is episode 8. Is it episode 8? Maybe episode 9. Um, Yeah, episode 9. So this is Mixed Haul, episode 9. I went to my favorite used record store, found some stuff. I went to a bookstore that I frequent and found a couple of books to add to my collection. And then I went to thrift stores and I went to a pawn shop. I got all this different stuff. So it should be fun. I got a bunch of videos I need to get done, but work seems to always get in the way. So anyway, so let's do this one. Hopefully this isn't too long. All right. So I went out today to a thrift shop near a work site that I had to be at. So I popped in there to see what was there, and the only thing I found was Penguin Classic, a Penguin Classic of Mordecai Richler's Barney's version. Mordecai Richler is one of Canada's greatest novelist. Probably his most famous work and his best work is The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz, which was turned into a movie. I may do a movie to book comparison in that if I can find that book and find the movie. I have not been able to find either one of those. So um, actually, no, that's untrue. I do have The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz in my library over there. So I'm just looking for the movie. This one is probably his second best. It's called Barney's version. And basically, it's ebullient and perverse. Thrice married Barney Panofsky believes in only two things: life is absurd, and nobody truly ever understands anybody else. But when his sworn enemy publicly accuses Barney of being a wife abuser, an intellectual fraud, and probably a murderer, he is driven to write his own memoir to stand the record straight. Charged with comic energy and a wicked disregard for any pieties whatsoever, Barney's version is a brilliant portrait of a man whom Mordecai Richler has made uniquely memorable for all time. It is an extremely good novel, all right? But, like I said, The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz is probably his most famous and best work, but you will not be disappointed reading this novel, all right? So, um, and it's in a nice version of a Penguin Classic. This is only the second Penguin Classic with the white cover that I've seen, because I think maybe they're all Canadian. Because the other one I found that's like this, that's a Penguin Classic is a Stephen Leacock book, who was another great Canadian writer. Probably the funniest. Him and Roald Dahl are probably the two funniest guys I've ever read. Um, short story wise, whatever, right? So, um, anyway, so that's Mordecai Richler, Barney's version. If you have not read it, I would suggest you give it a shot. And if you like Canadian fiction, you probably already read it. All right, next up is I found one, two, three, four books at another thrift store. There's Kiss of the Spider Woman. I picked this one up because I'm definitely going to do a book to movie comparison. I have not read the book, but I have seen the movie, and the movie is an extremely good movie. It stars William Hurt and Raul Julia. Is it William Hurt or is it John Hurt? No, William Hurt, the American, not the British guy. Um, so William Hurt, and they're basically in a South American prison. What prison is it in? Argentina, and Raul Julia plays this dissident, this political prisoner type of guy who's in jail, and his roommate in jail is William Hurt, who plays a gay man who loves American film. And anyways, it goes on from there. It's a pretty interesting, um, eye-opening film based on this book. All right, and this book, written by Manuel Puig, 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 um, is considered one of the great, Latin South American novels, up there with, well, they say it in the back, up there with, Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Borges. All right, so Kiss of the Spider Woman, it's not in super great shape. It's got that bend there. But like I said, I bought it so that I could do a comparison to the movie. Next up after that I found in the same thrift shop is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. All right. It's his magnus opus. It's his greatest novel, and it's fucking huge. All right. It's a very large novel, and I, because of that, have not read it. All right. This is in the original French. All right. And it's a folio classic. All right. If you notice the number on it, see the number? It's 3223, 3223. These are the most popular books written in French in Canada, and probably, I'm not sure worldwide or not, but um, all the great French writers are in this library. Now, you can see there's over 3,000 volumes of these folios, right? And there's even more, there's over 5,000 of them, right? So um, whenever I come across them, I pick them up because they're the type of paperback that I can resell for a half decent price. Okay, so I don't read French well enough to read that. I would have to get an English translation to read Les Miserables. But um, anyway, so that's Les Miserables by Hugo. All right. Next, I found this, The Complete Works of William Shakespeare. This is all of his plays and all of his poetry. All right. So I bought it to resell. It's There's always somebody who's interested in Shakespeare because he's the greatest writer in English on the planet ever. All right. Um, and uh, I mostly like his comedies more than his tragedies. I do not like his histories much, but I do like his comedies. They're friggin' hilarious. All right. And if you ever have the chance to read A Midsummer Night's Dream, this is probably my favorite Shakespeare play. That is hilarious. All right. It's basically a story of a bunch of couples going into the forest. And at the beginning, this man loves this woman, and this man loves this woman. This woman loves this man. There's couples, but then there's a fairy named Puck who decides to sprinkle fairy dust on these people. And what this fairy dust does is, once it lands on you, the next person you see, you instantly fall in love with. So as you can imagine, all the pandemonium and, and everything that happens in the play, and especially if you remember that in Shakespeare's day, all the women parts were played by men as well. So there's that juxtaposition there as well. So it's a hilarious play if you have not read it. I would suggest you go see it. It's probably, I'm a bit biased towards that one because I saw that um, play when I was in high school, and it friggin' we were asked to leave the theater because we were laughing too hard, my friend and I. Anyway, so all right, so that's the complete works of Shakespeare. Now I went to a bookstore and I found two books. All right, the first one I found was, it's called the Bascom novels by Richard Ford. It's basically a trilogy. Well, there's four of them now, but when this was published, um, it was a trilogy, and the three books are called. I wrote them down. So the first one was called The Sports Writer. It came out in 1986. Next was Independence Day, 1995. And then the third one was The Lay of the Land in 2006. And it all talks about the life of Frank Bascom. He starts off as a sports writer, and then in the second novel, he's moved on from sports writing, and he's now a real estate agent, and he owns properties, and a bunch of tragedies happen in his life. And anyways, once you read the first novel, The Sports Writer, um, you seem to get hooked from what when I talk to other people about this, because I haven't read it. You get hooked on it, and then when you read the second novel, you see how all the characters have gotten older, like 10 years older, because the first one 1986, and then the next volume was 1995, so it was like a decade later. So he aged all of his characters in the book and added other characters, obviously. And then the third novel, he's even older and he's fighting. I think it's prostate cancer, but it's some sort of cancer in the third book. Anyways, um, from my understanding, people who have read this book, um, the first book were really enjoying that book. And then the second book, it won the Pulitzer, and most people even think that one is better than the first one. And then the third one came out, and then a fourth one came out after this was published, and it's called Let Me Be Frank. In other words, Frank is the name of the main character, right? And that came out in 2014, so 8 years later after the first three books came out, right? Now, the reason why I picked it up is it because it's an Everyman Library, and I collect this set of books or series of books. So this one is numbered 319 in the collection. There's maybe 500 volumes. I know there's more than 400, but I think there's less than 500 volumes in this library. So if you want to like create a nice library to put on bookshelves in your house, to give a nice aesthetic on a wall or whatever, this is a really nice version of books to collect, because they're all classics in literature and philosophy and so on and so forth, right? So and they all have these type of spines, or white and black spines, different spines. But when you put them all together, you can tell it's a single library, and it's a really nice library to collect. And it started in I think it was 1995 or 1996, with these nice versions. All right, they all have a ribbon as well. All right, so this is the first book I got from that bookstore that I frequent. All right, so it's the Bascom novels by Richard Ford. All right. And the second book I found was, uh, now, I don't know if you've watched any of my previous videos, but I mentioned that there's uh, 5 sets of books that I collect. All right. So I collect the Everyman Library, which I just showed you. That's the modern version of it. They also have a version of the Everyman Library that started back in the early 1900s. It got up to 1,000 volumes, and then it was stopped. I collect that, and that's um, a British publication. All right, the Everyman Library is British, um, um, and the Americans started one in the 1930s as a competitor to the Everyman Library. It's called the Modern Library, and I collect those volumes as well. I think I have between 100 and 200 of each of those two libraries, and I have about 50 of this modern one. The re issuing of this library in different volumes or whatever, right? So and I collect those ones. I just collect to maybe finish the set. I'm never going to finish it. It's 1,000 volumes in the Everyman Library, and it's like over 800 volumes in the Modern Library, and some of them are quite difficult to find. So I've been collecting it for over 20 years, and I'm only maybe up to 200 volumes in each one of those libraries, but probably even less than that. Um, but there's 3 other things that I collect, but I've restricted those to books that I've read and liked or enjoyed, and I want a nice version of it. All right. So there's 2 leather-bound companies um, that put out leather-bound books. One's the Franklin Library; they're no longer in business. And the other one is called the. Do you think I can remember it? Eastman Press. I think it's called the Eastman Press, and the Eastman Press came out after the Franklin Library, but they're nice leather-bound editions of classic works or whatever, right? So, and they're hundreds of dollars, these volumes, right? But if you're patient and if you know where to look, you can find these volumes, for less than $20 each, right? So um, in the secondary market. But what I do is I'll read a book, and let's say um, Animal Farm. All right, I really enjoyed George Orwell's Animal Farm. Then I'll go search out a really nice version of it, a leather-bound edition of it, and add it to my collection. All right, so that's what I'll do with books that I've read and I've enjoyed. So those 2 leather-bound um, companies that put out these volumes that I've read and enjoyed, I have them over there. And the third one I collect is it's called the Folio Society, which is another British imprint, right? And they put out hardcover books in a nice, a cardboard slipcase, and they're really nicely illustrated, and they're beautiful volumes. And uh, I'll collect those ones of the books that I've read, and I've read a lot of books. If I can't find them in the leather-bound edition from the Franklin Library or the Eastman Press, Easton Press. Then I'll see if I can find it in a folio. Now, this is an example of a Folio Society book, all right? Not the folio, the French paperbacks folio, right? But the Folio Society from Great Britain, all right? So it's basically a book, all right? All right. And it's in a nice hard cardboard slipcase to protect the book, all right? And the book is really nicely made, all right? So see how nice it is? If you open it up, the paper stock is really good. It usually has many of them, or most of them actually have, artwork inside as well as photography. If this is a nonfiction book, so it's got photos. Now this one is called the Dead Sea Scrolls, and I have not read it, but I made an exception because this was really low price. It was under $20 for this, and it's basically new. All right, and the Dead Sea Scrolls are difficult to find. It's the first time I've come across a book um, about the scrolls that they found in the caves, on the West Bank, in Jordan. I think it was in Jordan on the West Bank of the Dead Sea. They found a whole bunch of different scrolls, and they relate back to the Jewish Bible, the Torah, and that a lot of the writings. And there's a bunch of other manuscripts as well, or whatever. So it pertains to Christianity, like it has the Book of Enoch and other books. Um, this is where they came from, right? So it's an interesting piece of history and piece of religion, religion and history kind of mixed in. So I always wanted to read it, but I could never find it, right? So I finally found it the other day at a bookstore in a nice folio edition. So I said, screw that, I'm going to pick that up and read it. But until I do, what I do with the folios is I don't want them to get scratched or banged or ripped or whatever. So I protect them like I do my movies, right? So I put them in a nice plastic bag. All right. Um, so I'll close that up, make it firm or whatever, and then put it on my shelf until I read it. Okay. Then so those are the two books that I got at that bookstore, and one, two, three, four, five books that I got at two thrift stores, and then I went over to my favorite um, used record store, and I found a record and three films. All right, so here's the record, and I wrote a bunch of stuff down for this record because it's important. All right, in Canadian music history, anyway. Okay, all right, so this is King Biscuit Boy's 1984 album, Mouth of Steel. All right, so it was about a decade since his previous um, album. All right, getting old. Previous album. So this is his fourth album. His third album was put out in 1974, I think 1974. And it was called King Biscuit Boy, right? And that King Biscuit Boy album is probably one of the greatest blues albums of all time, and probably the greatest blues album in Canadian history. All right, and this one isn't too bad either, but it's not as good as that one. But I found this at um, the used record store that I like to go to for like $8. All right, and like I said, it's his fourth album, and he's basically a blues player, a blues guitarist, and a harmonica player. And he's played with some of the greats of the genre, right? But he kind of goes under the radar in Canada. Like until maybe a decade ago, I never even heard of the guy. All right, and he had put out like 7 albums altogether, and I've never heard of him. And how I ended up hearing of him um, was through a book by Bob Mercereau, who wrote a book called like the 100 Greatest Albums in Canadian Music or whatever. Can't remember the exact name of the book. I'll put it up here. Um, and he mentions Crowbar, and he mentions, he has an album by Crowbar, and he has an album by King Biscuit Boy, in that top 100. And I went, I've never even heard of these guys. Who are these guys, right? And just happens to be the same guy. All right. So this the guy's name is Richard Newell, and he played in the band that backed up Ronnie Hawkins back in the 1960s. All right. And then Ronnie Hawkins fired him and the rest of the band, and they kind of got together and made Crowbar. All right. And they put out an album called King Biscuit Boy with Crowbar. Um, and maybe that's the album that he mentioned. Yeah, that's the album, one of the greatest albums of all time in Canadian music history. And Crowbar is the on that album is the only song that anybody knows from Crowbar, and they don't know any music, or most people don't know any music from King Biscuit Boy. All right, but Crowbar and King Biscuit Boy put out an album. It's a brown album. It looks like the color of of a grocery paper bag, paper bag, grocery paper bag, that kind of off brown look. It looks like that, and it's an extremely good album. But Crowbar went on to make some more albums, but King Biscuit Boy left Crowbar after that album, but he kind of guest appears with Crowbar a lot over the history of Crowbar, but he went on a solo career and put out a bunch of blues albums. And this one is his fourth. And whenever I see something like King Biscuit Boy or Crowbar, and those albums are really hard to find, you'll never find them on CD. The only way you're going to find them is on an LP, all right? And even then, they're kind of hard to find, right? So Canadian music is hard to find, even when you're living in Canada, okay? I mean, everybody can go on Discogs and pay through the teeth for what they want. If you have a large budget. I don't have a large budget. I mean, $8. Wow, that's a steal. All right, so that is the album that I got from that bookstore. The used record store that I like to frequent. All right, and then I found three movies. The first one I found was a Blu-ray of The Exorcist, the extended cut. All right, um, the Friedkin book. This is my argument for the greatest horror film of all time. And I finally found it on a Blu-ray because I only have it on a DVD, so I can upgrade it. So I'll take the DVD, put it inside the Blu-ray case. Well, I have Blu-ray cases that have two, what do you call them, two disc holders instead of just one. Like this one only has one disc. Uh, I bought a bunch of double disc Blu-ray cases that have the second disc here holder, and then I just combined the DVD with the Blu-ray and put it in one case, right? So it saves space on my shelf, right? So that's what I'm going to do with this. If you haven't seen this movie, see it. I don't think it's dated at all, even though it came out in the 1970s. And when I saw it, it scared the living shit out of me, all right? And I've watched it numerous times since, and it still scares the living shit out of me. And it just creeps me out. Before I didn't have kids, I was a kid, and I was freaked out and scared by this film. Now I have kids, and now I look at it as a parent, and it scares the living shit out of me in a whole new way, all right? So um, first way I related more to the girl, uh, Blair. What the hell is her name? I keep forgetting her name. Linda Blair. I related to Linda Blair because I was a kid myself. Um, but then once I became a parent, I started relating more to her mother um, rather than her, and it just gave me a new way of being scared shitless. Right. So anyway, so that's The Exorcist. All right. That was the first one I got from uh, that the used record store, like, and then I found this one, and I went, cool. All right. So a horror double pack with two Rob Zombie films, House of a Thousand Corpses, and my personal favorite of his, The Devil's Rejects. Now I have what I had before I found that is this one. All right. So this one is the DVD. It's a 3-disc DVD box set, which has The House of a Thousand Corpses on DVD, and it has a 2-disc special version of The Devil's Reject on DVD, one for the movie and then one for the special features and everything, right? So I'm just going to take this one and combine them into one, all right? But how are you going to do it? Because um, the problem is when you combine DVDs and Blu-rays, the the Blu-ray has to be just one disc, and then the DVD has to be just one disc. if they're special editions that have more than one disc, then if you're going to put them in a Blu-ray case, you're going to um, they're going to be loose discs inside of it, right? So let's say you have one Blu-ray and you get a double disc Blu-ray case. You put the Blu-ray in one side, and then you put the DVD in the other one. But then you got a third DVD that's the extra features. What do you do with that? And I'm going, okay, what you need to do is you need to buy a Blu-ray case that has, you know, the two uh, the two disc holding, and then a clamshell thing that flips around on the inside, and then you put the third disc on that, right? So it's a 3 disc holding Blu-ray case. The problem with that is you can buy 2 disc Blu-ray cases for about $1 each. You can get about 100 of them for $100 off of Amazon from a company that I order from anyway. But once you get into 3, 4, or 5 disc Blu-ray cases, you're talking multiple dollars. You're talking $5, $6, $7 for one, right? And maybe if you buy a group of them, you may get it down to like 3 or 4 or $5, whatever, right? So it's expensive. So if you're like me and you're on a budget, and the reason why, let's say you picked this up because you found it for $1, right? And you picked this up because you found it for $3. Spending $5 just to combine the two of them just kind of kills the purpose of finding them, cheaply or at a low price, right? So I don't mind spending $1. If I combine these two into a case that's $1, well, it's just an added dollar. So let's say I paid um, $1 for this and $3 for this, that'd be $4, and then add another dollar, $5. These are still both worth $5, right? So even adding an extra dollar by getting a 2 disc um, Blu-ray case is worth it, but it isn't if you spend $5 or $6 or $7 to get a 3 disc. So I said, what can I do about that? Because I don't want a disc inside this being flipped around. You know what I mean? So then I said, hey, you know what I can do? So what I did was I ordered this, all right, which are basically disc holders, paper disc holders. And I'm just going to put the third disc inside of one of these paper, and then put it inside, even though it's not it's not in one of the receptacles inside here. It's not on one of these, you know, one of these things, right, on the spindle or whatever, right? What you can do is you can put it in one of those white paper things, and then you just slide it into these things that have the advertising usually on it. You just slide it in there, and it'll hold it there, right? So it's pretty much almost as good, and then you don't have to spend $5 or $6 on a 3 or 4 disc um, Blu-ray case, and you can still combine them. So now I'm going to combine these, and instead of it, being that thick, it's only going to be this thick, right? And it saves space on my shelves, right? So that's what I'm going to do with that. But if you haven't watched The Devil's Reject or House of a Thousand Corpses, The House of a Thousand Corpses, you know what I mean? It's the introduction of Rob Zombie to everybody. You know what I mean? It was just a lot of blood, and I don't know. But The Devil's Rejects wasn't bad. It was pretty good actually. And then he went on to make the Halloween remakes and all that. But I think out of all the films he's made, The Devil's Rejects is probably my favorite. All right, so that's that. I will combine those, and then the third movie I found at that used record store that I like to go to is an Orson Welles film. All right, all right. So this is the complete Mr. Arkadin. All right, so Orson Welles made a movie called Mr. Arkadin, and it's basically about a recluse billionaire. All right, who hires because he has amnesia for a whole bunch of his past, and he hires this thief guy or whatever, this criminal guy, to go back in his past and find out who he was, because what he did was he woke up one day in a hotel room. He had a bunch of money and he didn't know where the money came from. And then he restarted his life and, became a billionaire, and he wants to know what happened before the hotel room. And then the guy investigates it all. And anyways, I don't want to ruin the film. It's a really good film. Anyways, there's like a bunch of different versions. There's like 3 versions of the film, and there's actually a novel as well. And they actually included the novel So there's the novel of Mr. Arkadin, all right? And um, then Orson Welles made a movie out of it, but there's kind of like a European version of the movie. There's an American version of the movie. And then they made a third one which combines both of them, like a more comprehensive film of it. So there's actually three movies in one in this, all right? And it's a nice box set. Even has a booklet as well, all right? Um, and three discs. All right. Now this is numbered. I think I'm going to go through all my Criterions. I have around 400 of them, and I think I'm going to start protecting the booklets inside the cases because they kind of want to go into the center area, and then when you open and close them, you kind of bend them or whatever, right? So I think maybe I need to protect them to keep them in good condition. Otherwise, they'll get wrecked over time, right? So um, anyway, so it's three films, which is three versions of the movie, and then they have a whole bunch of extras, including you know Orson Welles stuff and scholars of Orson Welles and all that. So it's a really comprehensive set around this one film. Now this is number 322 in the collection, and it's a DVD, three DVD set. You can't get it in Blu-ray or 4K, and the DVD set, this is sold out. So right now this is worth a good amount of money, and I found it for a reasonable price. So I'm happy with that. And but of course, don't ever don't ever think, okay, I'm going to spend a large amount on this because I know that this is going to go up in price over time because it's out of print. They didn't make any Blu-rays of it. They didn't make any 4Ks of it. The only thing you can get it on is in this set. You can't even get it in, let's say, I don't know who actually put out the film originally. Um, Looks like London Films. So London Films didn't put out an edition of it. The only way you can get it is inside a Criterion, and the only way you can get the Criterion is this box set. All right, so this is the only way you can get that film. So and Criterion isn't making it anymore. So you figure that this film is going to be worth a lot of money, and it'll just go up in price because people will look. Orson Welles is a very good director, and if you, especially if you like the history of film. Orson Welles is somebody that you're going to come across in all of his films. He was like big into Shakespeare. He did a lot of Shakespearean stuff as well. Citizen Kane. A lot of people consider Citizen Kane as the greatest film ever made. I do not, but a lot of people do. All right, so he's a big director that if you're doing the history of film, you're going to come across and learn about. Right. So if you want this film, this is how you're going to get it. But don't mistake. Um, because it's out of print and it's on DVD, that it's going to stay that way. All right. So if you go out and spend a ton of money to get this, which I did not, okay, um, like $100 or something, will you buy it for $100 just because you want it in your collection? Somebody's ripping you off. But anyways, the point being is just because presently this is out of print, only on DVD, and the only way you're going to get to see the movie is if you buy um, this box set, doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. All right. What's going to happen eventually, I just know it because it's happened with other ones, is they're going to re-put this out on a 4K, right? If they can find the original master tapes of it or whatever, they'll put it out on a 4K. If not, maybe they'll put it out on a Blu-ray. But eventually, this is going to come out it may never come out on DVD again. I mean, Criterion may not print a whole bunch more DVDs to put this back into print. But what they will do is, because this does not have a Blu-ray edition yet or a 4K edition, it's going to come at some point. All right, they're not going to leave this as a DVD. All right, unless the prints that they have or whatever are so bad that they can't upgrade it any higher than a DVD, then yeah, it may stay as a DVD, but I doubt it. It's going to be a Blu-ray or a 4K at some point, right? Anyway, so that's the complete Mr. Arkadin. Arkadin, ignorant intellectual, or confidential report, which was the European name for the film, right? So all in one nice box set. So when I saw this at my used record store, I went, yeah, I'm going to grab that before somebody else does. because I don't have it in my collection, and now I do, and I don't mind DVDs. So even if they don't ever come out with a Blu-ray, maybe I'm wrong, or a 4K version of Mr. Arkadin, I'm happy with DVDs. I'm not sure if you are. All right, so that's Mr. Arkadin, number 323, number 322 in the Criterion Collection. So those are the three films: The Exorcist, the double pack of the Rob Zombie films, A Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects, and Orson Welles, Mr. It's hard to say his name, Ar- Arkadin. Arkadin. All right. Next up, uh, and lastly, I think, anyways, no, not lastly, is I bought uh, four films off a woman off of Facebook Marketplace. She was selling a bunch of Disney films for like $2 each, $2 or $3. Anyways, they were very reasonably priced, either $2 or $3, and they were all a bunch of Disney films. So I got Alice in Wonderland, all right, DVD Blu-ray combination, all right. Don't really have to explain Alice in Wonderland, do I? I got Cinderella, all right, the diamond version of it, all right, Blu-ray DVD version, all right. Don't have to explain Cinderella, and I got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I have Volume 1, but I didn't have Volume 2. So I watched this with my son, and he quite enjoyed it, and so did I. And Big Hero 6, one of Disney's computer animated films that isn't a Pixar film, right? So, and this is quite fun to watch as well. All right. So, so those are the four Disney films I found, and then I also found another person selling four Blu-rays for $5. All right, and well, three Blu-rays and a 4K. So I actually bought a 4K. In a previous video, I bought a bunch of horror stuff off a gentleman that included It, the Stephen King film It, um, in a 4K, and others that were 4K Blu-ray combos. But I bought them because most of them were Blu-rays, not because they were 4Ks, because I don't have a 4K player, right? So I can't play 4Ks. Don't have a 4K TV, all right? But so probably officially, I would deem this is the first actual 4K I bought individually, um, in preparation in future time that I'm probably going to be having a 4K player at some point, right? And it was such a great price that I couldn't turn it down. So I got four films, um, for $5. I got The Secret Life of Pets, which I'm going to sell because I collect Studio Ghibli films and Disney films, but I don't really go any further than that in the animation, unless it's a really great film, or historically important or whatever. All right. X-Men First Class, I already have this film, so on Blu-ray, so I'll sell that as well. And I already have this one as well, The Dark Knight. So I bought those ones. Those ones I'll just sell. But the main reason why is because I got Ready Player One on 4K. All right. So Ready Player One is directed by Steven Spielberg, and I have this on Blu-ray. So now I have a 4K version. Now, what am I going to do if I have it on Blu-ray, have it on 4K, and I have it on DVD? Usually, what I do is I combine the DVD with the Blu-ray and put it in a Blu-ray case. So now I have a 4K of it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to combine the Blu-ray, the DVD, and the 4K into a 4K case. All right. So I'll basically, um, it already has the Blu-ray in it, so I don't have to. At least I think that's what this is. Yeah, it's the Blu-ray and the 4K. So you get the Blu-ray with the 4K. All right. So it's a double. So what I'll do is I'll just take um, the DVD and put it in one of these paper things, and then just put it inside the 4K case. All right. And the Blu-ray, since I have it in here already, I'll just sell the Blu-ray. All right. So that's officially or unofficially, depending on what technicality, but as an individual 4K film movie, this is the first one I've ever bought. All right. Other than those horror ones that I bought in a group pack, that those 4Ks just kind of came with what I was purchasing, right? I didn't intentionally buy the 4Ks. just some of them were in 4K, right? So this is officially the intention of buying a 4K. This is the first one I ever bought. All right, so it's history, at least in mine. All right, so Ready Player One, Steven Spielberg's film. Um, I actually watched that film, and I didn't really rank it super high in Spielberg's catalog because I can't even remember it now. I'll have to watch it again, and then that memory bank will be opened up, and then I'll remember the whole movie after watching the first 10 minutes. Oh, okay, now I remember this film, right? That happens a lot when you get older, or it happens a lot even if you're not older. All right, if you watch a lot of films, it'll happen to you where you'll remember scenes, but you can't remember which film they're from, right? And then you watch a film, and you realize, hey, I've already watched this film, but you don't remember that you watched it, right? At least I'm hoping it's not just me. Maybe I'm, running towards Alzheimer's. I'm not sure. All right, so that's those uh, 8 Blu-rays, or 7 Blu-rays and 1 4K that I got off of 2 different private sales off of Facebook Marketplace. And then last but not least, I went to a pawn shop, and I was going in there to find a Zippo lighter because I collect Zippo lighters as well. I have a pretty good collection of Zippo lighters. Maybe I'll show them to you one time or another. But I collect a lot of crap. You know, I feel sorry for my wife after I'm passing. She's got to go through all this stuff. But I'm going to leave it all to my son. Anyway, so um, I found three albums at that pawn shop. They usually have pretty good pricing on albums, and it's not the one that I mentioned, a pawn shop that has really, usually has pretty good prices on LPs. There's that one, but there's another one in another part of my city that also has it. And what I found with them is three Rolling Stones albums. All right, so they they're manufactured by Abco Records, and they are digitally remastered from the original master recordings. All right, and what I found was the Rolling Stones Now. All right, hopefully you don't get a shine on it because of the plastic bag it's in. And I got Aftermath. I'll turn it just in case if there's a light on it. All right, and I got 12 by 5. So these are all early records from the Rolling Stones. So I thought that was kind of cool. And I got them for a pretty good price. I think I paid $40 for the three of them. So that's kind of cool. So I don't have these. At least I don't think I have these on CD. So because I have a database of the music that I have, I usually use for my music a website called rateyourmusic.com, and it allows you to put in all the music that you have, and then if you have a smartphone, you're walking around, you just go on Rate Your Music, and you can just punch in whatever album that you see and see whether you have it in your collection or not, right? So that's what I did, and I didn't have any of these three in my collection, so I don't have CDs for them. So now I have them on LP. I will transfer them to an MP3 file using my record player, and then I'll have them on a flash drive, right? All right, so that is basically everything. Is it? Is it everything? Am I forgetting anything? I'm not forgetting. No, I'm not forgetting anything. So that's everything. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I did not say film this time. All right. Hopefully you enjoyed this the video. Um, and thank you for staying through all of it. If you did, I'm not sure how long it is. And if you enjoyed it, leave me a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, subscribe. I would enjoy that. Come come back and watch some other videos of mine, and I'll be putting more up as the days go along. And I hope you enjoyed this one, like I said. And I will talk to you in my next video. And you have a good day, and bye for now. All right.